Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1831. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Chappaqua, New York, with a very special guest by the name of Ian Karr. Ian, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Mark, I have it in gear. I am so ready to release the clutch. I've been a fan of your show, and it's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. Great to have you here, too. Now, before I give you a proper introduction, I'd love for you to share with the listeners today one little thing that maybe most people don't know about you.
Well, the one thing that most people don't know about me is that I did a week of stand-up comedy at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas.
Really? What was that like?
It was amazing. It was amazing. I had done stand-up a little bit when I had gotten out of college and in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. And hadn't really done it much, but I was doing a show with Steve Sharippa, who you may remember from The Sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
And Steve, before he was an actor, was the head of entertainment at the Riviera Hotel.
No
kidding.
And
when he became an actor, and when he became an actor, they wouldn't let him leave because he did such a good job. So while he was on The Sopranos, he was also booking talent at the Riviera.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, I'm working with him on this show, and he says to me, yeah, I hear you've done stand-up. And I said, yeah, I have. And he says, you want to do a week at the Riviera?
Wow.
And I said, that's a bad Steve impression, but whatever. You get the idea.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had just met him. I didn't know that when Steve Sharippa says something, you can take it to the bank. There is no doubt about it. I never expected to hear anything.
Yeah.
The next day, I get a phone call. Hello, this is Charlene from the Riviera Hotel. I understand you'll be performing with us for a week.
Wow.
And now I haven't been on stage in 15 years or something like that. And
Pressure's
I had to get an act together.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Well, yeah, stand up, not my thing. I don't think I could do it well. And talk about pressure. You're dealing with so many things. You could be the greatest comedy writer ever. And if you don't have the right audience, wrong night, something's, yeah. Wow. Brave. For sure.
I like to go into things just head first. I figure everything in life is a story, right?
Yep.
And if you don't go in head first, you're never going to get great stories. So I'm still thinking of things. I'm still remembering things from that week at the Riviera, and It worked out fantastic. I mean, it was definitely a challenge, but I enjoyed it.
Well, that's cool. Well, let's go head first into your life here and have some fun on Cars Yeah. Let me give you a proper introduction. Ian Karr is the founder of IKA Collective. It's a creative and content-driven production agency currently in its 35th year. This guy's been around for a little while.
I started when I was 3.
When you were 3, there you go. There's the comedy. IKA's credits encompass television series, promos, commercials, and original digital content. Notable clients include people like Discovery Network, Showtime, Fox, Hallmark Channel, United Airlines, St. Martin's Press, Cisco Systems, the New York Times, and FX. And you'll recognize a few of his hit TV shows that he played integral roles in, including Empire, Gotham, Weeds, Dexter. Oh, my wife and I love that one. American Horror Story, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, to name just a few. He spent 8 years on Sirius XM as co-host of Jackie's Joke Hunt, and he has a very active YouTube channel. Here's where the Cars tie in, along with his last name, where he restores classic cars in his home garage. I met Ian thanks to Jeffrey Alon when I was a guest on the Auto Lab radio show. And by the way, there's something currently happening on the History Channel. Ian's the voice of The Cars That Built the World, a very cool series about automobiles that you got to check out on the History Channel. We'll be back in just a minute to talk more with Ian, but first a word from our valued sponsor, so give him a little love. We'll be right back. One of your vehicle's interior surfaces that gets a lot of abuse is your dashboard. The sun beats down and those damaging UV rays cause massive heat cycles, resulting in color changes and sometimes cracks. My friends at Covercraft have a great solution for you and for me. Their custom-tailored dash mats protect your dash from heat buildup while providing a stylish solution. You can choose from a variety of styles and colors, including carpet, suede mat, that's the one I have for my vehicles, Carhartt limited edition velour mats, and the Ultimat for trucks and SUVs. Another great benefit of your Covercraft dash mat is that it eliminates the harsh glare the sun produces from your dash to the inside of your windshield, which can make driving a hazard. Covercraft's Dash Mat Design Center is located in Arizona, where they know about harsh sun. I've got a special deal for you. If you use the code YEAH21, YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Just use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. Most people don't think about their collector car insurance until their annual premium becomes due. Well, why wait and see if there are better options for your beloved rides? I didn't. Did you know if you change carriers before your policy runs out, your insurance company has to refund you the unearned portion of your policy premium? I did my homework, I shopped around, and I found American Collectors Insurance. And that's who protects my Porsche Turbo. That's right, the one I call my Orange Crush. They've been protecting collector vehicles since 1976. I encourage you to call my friends at American Collectors Insurance. Ask them about their agreed value policy. And if your collector vehicle is on your regular auto policy, you will be shocked at the savings, not to mention the assurance, should something bad happen to your ride, that you'll get what your vehicle is actually worth. Give them a call today for a quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of Mark Green at Karr's Yeah, American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. Automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. That's American Collectors Insurance. Give them a call today. All right, Ian, we're back. So let's dive a little deeper into the corner and talk a little bit about your career, your business, how it ties to cars, and then evolve this into this new YouTube channel where you're restoring cars, something new that you're taking on. You love to dive headfirst into corners. So, Ian, take the wheel.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate the really nice introduction. So, IKA Collective is my content creative and production agency. And as you mentioned, we've done a lot of work with networks and major corporations over the years. But my hobby, if you want to call it that, is working on cars.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about owning a production company and being a director and knowing how to work all that stuff is that, I know how to tell a story visually. And one day I said, what if I just combine these two things together and I start producing some content in the garage? So that was kind of like the foundation of it, but I had to give myself some handicaps, because if I approached the stuff I did in the garage the same way I approach work, nothing would get done because I'd be a perfectionist and everything, would linger. So at first I said, okay, everything has to be shot on an iPhone and I have to do it all handheld. Mm-hmm. So that just by not having to move a tripod around, I figured, that's a handicap enough. I'm going to give myself that flexibility. Yeah. But then I realized it was making people kind of dizzy.
Too jiggly.
A little too. So I had to grab a tripod and start doing things. Then I said, I'm not going to light. I'm not going to spend the time lighting things. And then I realized you can't really see if you're not really lighting things.
Here we go.
So it started to snowball a little bit. But I think I've reached a pretty good equilibrium now, where I can detune, to use a car phrase, I can detune my expectations a little bit and make it more fun. And honestly, it's funny. When you work in television, you know, or you learn that the pilot episode is really just the very, very beginning, and shows don't really start to hit their stride until well into the first season. Right. I mean, if you look at old episodes of Seinfeld, you'll see, Elaine had almost no role in the beginning, and so these things kind of develop. It's a process, and I don't know why I didn't think that would happen on my YouTube channel, but of course it did. And now I think the process has kind of worked its way out, and I think I like the mix of it being kind of just me hanging in the garage and then some valuable, hopefully info about, how to do stuff. But my main driving force for doing this is that I get a tremendous amount of joy from wrenching. I mean, I often say it's cheaper than therapy.
Yes.
And it is. I mean, especially in my business where so much is subjective. You work on a TV show or you do a commercial or network promo or something like that. There's a million different creative decisions. And as a friend of mine says, that world is not black and white. It's wildly gray. And I love that phrase. It's wildly gray. But the thing about when you work in a garage and you're turning a wrench, there is no doubt 18 foot-pounds or pound-feet is what it is. I mean, there is no subjectivity, and I really love that part of it. But then you kind of meld it with the art of automotive design and restoration, and it's a great kind of mix. So I really love doing that. And like I said, the whole reason I'm doing it is to share the joy of wrenching, because I think there's a lot of intimidation. I think people are just afraid, oh my gosh, it's a dark art. I can't take a wrench to my car.
All right. What if I break something?
That's for a professional. What if I break something? Then I say, the people who built these cars were not smarter than you and me. And in most instances, they didn't have tools that were as good, Harbor Freight notwithstanding. And at least I can go get a tool, just run down Harbor Freight. And they certainly didn't have YouTube. So you can actually see how other people do it. They didn't have forums with communities. I mean, as you know, then the Porsche 914 is kind of my drug of choice.
Yep.
And 914 World, which is the website for Porsche 914 owners and aficionados, is an amazing community. I mean, amazing. I don't care what challenge you run into, you put something up on there and you will get educated answers within moments.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's looking out for each other. So, I'm on a mission to spread the joy of wrenching by bringing people into my garage so they can see that, if I can do it, you can do it.
It's a wonderful story, and I wanted to touch on something here. For a guy who's worked in real TV for 35 years, you have seen a radical shift with YouTube, people doing what you're doing. I mean, the change that has occurred in the last 5 years, 10 years, has been absolutely incredible. And the content that people are producing now, some of it is just spectacular on a shoestring, if not zero budget, to put things out there is quite amazing. How has this affected your world in what I'll call the real world of television? I mean, these high production, high cost productions of television shows that we have all seen over the past compared to what people are putting out there now. And I'll give you an example why I asked this question. My next door neighbor's retired and he said, you know what? I don't watch TV anymore. I just watch YouTube. It's so interesting. I can find anything I want. Like you said, you can go in there and learn things. I mean, I always joke about if you want to know how to extract your own teeth, you can learn it on YouTube if you really want to do that.
And people probably do.
Maybe, yeah, if they can't afford to go to a dentist or don't want to. So what's your perception of what we're seeing happening right now? How is it affecting television? How have the networks had to shift? Because now all of a sudden everything's going to streaming. Even the big networks, you're just not seeing the interest in what they're producing as much as some of this specialty stuff. So what's your take on how this reality has shifted for us?
Well, it's definitely different, but it's interesting, and it's a bit of a conundrum in a lot of ways, because yes, the technology has gotten amazing, and people can do things that you would never even think of doing, before on your home computer. But the budgets for television content have not gone down. People are spending more money than ever. And it really is a golden age of television in the sense that more content is being created for the small screen than ever before. High quality content, what they call in the industry premium content, celebrity driven, celebrity executive produced. So I think what's happening is it's really a paradigm shift of the revenue model, honestly. I think that when television first started, and there's, 3 networks through the age that most of us grew up in, the 30-minute format with a 22-minute show and 8 minutes of commercials was viable because with only 3 networks, the audience was only hacked so much, and you could charge enough for those 8 minutes to cover all the costs of production, plus make some money as a television network. And as things got more fragmented, with cable and everything else, those individual 30-second spots were harder and harder to monetize everything else. So that's why you have, so many, so much diversification, even just simply like you look at Disney and the theme parks and movies and, Disney Channel. And so it's not so much about like, let's just make money over on one thing. It's about diversification. So I think what's happening in the network world, and then there's the linear factor of it, the whole must-see TV, or you have to park your butt on the couch at a certain hour to watch a certain show. And the fact that that's uncoupled now and you can kind of watch anything at whatever time you want makes the network use case, it changes it. It doesn't make it go away, because there's nothing like networks to aggregate talent, to attract the best writing talent and producers. When you're a one-off, it's much, much harder. And building something. I mean, when Netflix first started with House of Cards, it was one show, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, people were like, well, what's this Netflix? And now people are tripping over themselves to work with Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
But that didn't happen overnight. There's still plenty of people tripping over themselves to try to work with networks. But the interesting thing that's different, and I think it's really what's fueling the golden age of television, is that in linear television, you only have so many slots, right? So if you are ABC and you've got returning series and other stuff going on, you might have in prime time 3 slots over the course of a week. Yeah. You got 8 o'clock on Tuesday, and you got 9 o'clock on Thursday, and 10 o'clock on Friday available to you for new shows. So think about all the people producing shows, and now there's only 3 slots on that one network to do it. Well, I mean, now when you go nonlinear, you're not limited by the slots you have. You're only limited by the money that you have. Mm-hmm. So the paradigm shift is that as long as you have quality content that can be monetized, whether it be through subscription or anything, Hulu is a perfect example of that. There's still commercials on that. So as long as you can figure out a way to monetize it, then you can build new content. And the interesting thing is, the more content you make, the bigger library you have until you achieve this critical mass and you become a behemoth. So I think that's where the networks and everything is headed. I mean, it's a long-winded answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it, because it's an interesting thing that's occurring. And if I was to have you look into your crystal ball, given you've worked in the industry for 35 years now, what do you see? Like, where are we going to be in 5 years with all this? What do you see?
I think more people will cut the cord in 5 years, and not be direct subscribers of cable. I think there will be packages as consolidation in the entertainment industry continues to occur. So I think what you'll have people who will have a subscription to Discovery Plus and a subscription to HBO. You'll have like 10 subscriptions, and you'll watch everything on your computer rather than one cable bill. I think that's probably where we're headed in the not too distant future.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I would have cut my cable years ago if my wife didn't love football so much. But she just hasn't found a good viable option, or maybe there is one and we haven't figured it out, so she can watch live football. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing how it's changed. And as I mentioned, now you got this other thing, YouTube, where people are producing their own content, which is very viable and very fun for us viewers. And even it's brought me into, I've mentioned this before, I have a young couple from Australia who've created a once a week show on YouTube called Sailing La Vagabond, and they've been sailing around the world for 6 years. They've just had a baby, and now they're having their second baby
on the boat.
As a parent, I'm just going, they're in awe to me. It's like the fantasy world. No doubt they work their butts off to create this show every week, because they really do a good job. But I call it my weekly sea escape. And every Monday afternoon, I take my 17, 20-minute break, and I sit back and pour myself a nice glass of water or whatever, and I watch this, and I think about, what would it be like? And I'm not a sailor at all. I have no interest in boats. I mean, they're nice, but I'm a car guy. But they've drawn me into their lifestyle, and I'm in awe. And it's the same with what you're producing and other people are producing around cars that are changing, because we only have 24 hours in a day, right?
Right.
So there's only a certain amount of time you have to spend your leisure time. And the fact that these wonderful little devices allow us to take this stuff with us and watch it at any time. What a radical departure from you and my being a little kid and being stuck in front of that tube. Oh, it's 7 o'clock. Sit down. Got to watch right now or you miss it.
Right.
It's an incredible world we're living in, and the fact that we can produce things, and it's pretty darn cool in my mind. Yeah,
it is.
It's absolutely brilliant.
It's about viability, really. I mean, if you look at how this all came to be, I mean, YouTube started out kind of like with just kind of, nonsense videos for a while, like America's Funniest Videos with people getting hit in the crotch, like many technologies, it ends up being a goof until somebody says, hey, this could be used for something. But the thing that's really interesting about YouTube from an industry standpoint, from my standpoint, is that in broadcasting, I mean, you really have to look at that word broad, right? So like we were talking about before, if you don't have that much inventory in terms of available airtime, you have to hit the biggest possible audience you can with that program that you have. When those limitations are removed, you suddenly can create a situation where niche audiences are incredibly viable now. So where you wouldn't be able to, like for me, like doing a channel on repairing a 914 or 914 related content, there was no way that could ever live on. Who would watch? I mean, you'd have a loyal fan base, but it wouldn't be enough to justify that business investment.
Right.
But on YouTube, the scale is much different.
Yeah.
So you can produce it more inexpensively, and you can have a rabid fan base of it and have a really viable business. A friend of mine does videos about UFOs and charges. He does like 4 or 5 of these a year, charges a subscription, I think of like $20 every time he does a video, but he's got like 40,000 people. So if you do the math,
yeah, there's
$20 times 40,000, and he does that like 3 times a year.
Nice little income stream. Yeah.
I mean, what wouldn't work as a TV show, it works great on YouTube.
Well, it's finding your audience. I think that's the key here. The key message is what networks have been trying to do forever. And it's what's happening now, whether it's a TikTok or an Instagram or a podcast like Karr, whatever. You got to find your audience, your niche, and go for it. And I would think your advice to someone out there that wants to start something like what you've done on, let's say, a YouTube page and just share what they like to do, what would be your advice to somebody who has kind of been reluctant, going, oh, nobody wants to watch me, or I'm not very good at this, I'm not spit spot, I don't know all the technical stuff like Ian Karr does. What would be, well, you worked in the industry, I mean, serious TV, it takes a lot of talented people to produce a great TV show. And we all know that when we pick up an iPhone and we try to make something, we go, this kind of sucks. But there's an audience for it. So how would you advise somebody that wants to get started? I always say, just do it. Get started.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, just a note about the whole thing about knowing how to make television. If there were a formula and everybody in TV knew how to make great TV, then every show would be a hit.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody says, I know how to do it, I have the solution, just run away.
Because it's like, I know the right lottery numbers.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of alchemy. It's a little bit of luck. So, but I think you hit on something really important, is that you have to commit. You have to say, this is something I'm going to try. And I know you did this because you talked about it on our show.
Yep.
Is that I'm going to do this for a certain period of time, and I'm going to devote this X number of resources into doing it. And at the end of that period of time, I'll assess and see where I'm at. And if I can, I think, what did you say? If I could pay for lunch or something like that?
Yeah, if I can monetize a little bit of this to pay for a few things. Yeah, although I did have a son in a private college on the East Coast, so I had some heavy lifting to monetize.
It's a long way between lunch and an Ivy League school.
Yeah, no kidding.
But that's how you find out. Nobody just kind of snaps their fingers and builds an audience of millions and revenue of, in the millions. It just doesn't happen that way. But but if you're committed and you say, I'm going to do this, and it doesn't have to be a huge commitment. It's a lot like weight loss, or changing any kind of thing in your life.
Small moves.
It's small moves. It really is. So a friend of mine had a really interesting way of describing what you just did with the small moves. He said, you ever notice you take off in a plane in New York, and 6 hours later you land in LA, which is in a very different place. But do you ever really feel the plane move?
Right.
Like maybe at the end, when it circles around or something like that. But the point is that it's making tiny little moves that are imperceptible. But over time, it gets you to cross the country. And that's a really important thing to think about. And even in mechanics, it's the same thing. One little bolt, one little washer at a time. I mean, I'm restoring right now a 914 LE, which is a really rare version of the Porsche 914.
Yeah.
They only made originally 500, and now there's only like 100 and some odd left. I'm doing a nut and bolt restoration on it, and it literally was just a shell. And I looked at this thing with all the bags of nuts and bolts and everything else, and it was, incredibly daunting. But if you take it one washer at a time, you get through it.
You mentioned a great analogy here, and I've heard this many times, and it relates to life, it relates to business, it relates to projects, whether it's a 914 or a weight loss program or whatever it is. When a pilot, and my next door neighbor's a pilot, he talks about flying all the time, and when he takes off, he sets a course. But along the way, you're going to get blown around.
Yeah.
The winds or elements are going to change your path. You never know what they're going to be. So you're constantly making adjustments during this flight. They don't just fly a straight line. I mean, they have to go up and down and sideways and bank and go around clouds. And that's the way life is. And as long as you can accept that and keep adjusting and changing and moving and improving, nice way to segment into that, then you'll eventually get to where you are. But you have to keep making progress. You can't stop a flight in midair and go, I'm done. I think I'll do this later, because you will fall out of the sky. So it's a lot like that in life. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let's take a short break. We come back. Let's talk more about your YouTube channel and maybe some challenges you faced with it. You touched on a few with handheld lighting, and here we go. Now you're calling your sound tech guy to come over and help and put a lavalier on you. So sit tight, keep the seatbelts on, and we will be right back with Ian Karr. What began as a charitable car show has grown into the world's greatest collector car auctions, raising over $133 million for charitable organizations to date. For nearly 50 years, automotive enthusiasts from all over the world have enjoyed the Barrett-Jackson collector car auctions, and I'm a huge fan. Regarded as the barometer of the collector car industry, their auctions are world-class lifestyle events where thousands of the world's most sought-after, unique, and valuable automobiles cross the block in front of a global audience, in person, on TV, or streamed online. Barrett-Jackson produces the world's greatest collector car auctions in Scottsdale, Arizona, Palm Beach, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, and new for 2021, Houston, Texas. The excitement of Barrett-Jackson auctions is contagious, and a unique experience is not to be missed. And coming soon, something new for you Cars Yeah listeners. I'll be teaming up with Craig Jackson on the first ever Barrett-Jackson podcast, coming to your mobile devices every week. Listen here on Cars Yeah and check out the Barrett-Jackson website for unique details on this new, exciting podcast that I'm very proud to be a part of. And be sure to visit barrettjackson.com today. Barrett-Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auctions. I've discovered Linkage. It's a new quarterly publication and website that covers the automotive market, driving, restoring, collecting, and discovering your passion for motor vehicles. Linkage is about experiences, opinions, and values. Linkage is an actual informed, reasoned opinion based on first-hand experiences. A talented Linkage team covers the automotive world, the people who share your passion and mine, smart, considered, rational, and experienced opinions, ones you can learn from and grow. That includes our passion that drives auctions and the collector car market. So come with me and join us on this journey. And be sure to use the code CARSYEAH when you subscribe, and they'll give you $10 off. Boom! Linkage, geared for the automotive life. Subscribe today at linkagemag.com. All right, Ian, so let's talk a little bit about this challenge question. I always bring it up, and let's relate it to what you're doing with this current project, the 914, a very unique 914. I had a 73 2.0 that I bought. I came up with this genius idea when my son was 15 that'd be a great first car, and I went out and bought this thing, and my wife walked out and said, where did that come from? And I said, well, it's a Porsche, and it'd be a great car for Blake. And she's like, where's the airbags? That car's way too little. Nope. So we made it a project car. We fixed it up and sold it and flipped it into a 3 Series BMW, which was probably a lot safer for a teenager to be driving.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, but I'm a crazy car guy, right? And I love cars. So let's talk about some challenges that you've faced and how you've overcome them with this new YouTube channel.
Yeah. Well, there's challenges everywhere in life, I mean, one of the biggest challenges, obviously, is like how do you tackle something like this?
Mm-hmm.
How do you tackle a total restoration of a car? And that includes the engine, by the way. So it's challenging because there's so many ways in.
Have you done one before?
I've done top ends of engines before. I had never built one.
Well, what
from
about the
ground
whole
up.
restoration concept? Have you restored?
No.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, so I came to like serious wrenching pretty late in life. I mean, I was in my 40s. I mean, I did oil changes and stuff as a kid, and I've always been into cars. But for some reason, I just never really took it on. And I started with a 1965 Mustang restoration that I had as a father-son project. Nice. I wanted to do something with my boy. Uh-huh. And I took to it like you know how like you see those stories of people who sit in front of the piano, never played before, but in a week they're doing Chopin.
Oh, I hate those guys.
That wasn't quite me.
Yeah,
that
me
wasn't
neither.
Quite me. But it felt really natural to me, and then I started kind of getting into it. And originally I had a rule that I wouldn't touch anything that could strand me or hurt me. But as I got deeper into it, I found a way to kind of get through this. And I found, fortunately, a mentor for me, which is a guy named Stu Silverman. I'll give him a shout out. Nice. at a local auto place here called the Auto Center. Mm-hmm. And I would bring the car to him to check my work, like the professor, and make sure, hey, did I do this right? And he would say to me, he would shake his head and said, "You've never done this before?" I'm like, "No, never done this." Then he started to he really encouraged me. Every time I'd bring him like a thing to do on my car, because I didn't think I could do it, he said, "Take it home. Mm-hmm. Take it home." He said, "There's 2 screws under this thing here. You give me just a little information so that I could go and get myself into trouble on my own." And I rarely did. He helped really kind of move me along. So I think when you talk about challenges, that's one of them. You got to get out of your own way. Yeah. You have to
get out of your own head.
Yeah, just do it. I mean, how hard could it be? I also have a Ferrari 308, and when I started taking a wrench to that, even I was shaking my head.
Well, what's interesting about Ferraris? My son worked for a summer with a collector, and the first project he gave me said, "Take the front headlight buckets out of this Daytona." And Blake called me and he goes, "Dad, this guy wants me to just start taking his Ferrari apart. I've never even worked on a car." And I said, "One bolt at a time." And
that's it.
If something seems weird, stop and ask a question. And by the end of the first week, he had both those headlight buckets out. And I'll never forget at dinner. Now, this is an old Ferrari Daytona, beautiful car, but he said, "Dad, I don't know what those Italians were thinking, but they must have been drunk on Chianti because I've never seen so much crummy build quality and welds underneath a beautiful skin in my life." And I said, "Well, that's an old Ferrari for you."
Yep. I mean, it really is kind of amazing. And by the way, the differences between working on a German car and working on an Italian car, I mean, it's remarkable. Yeah. It's really remarkable. But
what's the color of that 914 you're working on? It's a lime. I can't remember it's a lime green, right?
It is called Ravenna Green.
There we go.
I always wanted one in Ravenna Green since I was a kid. I looked for it for years. I didn't find one. I settled for a yellow one, 73, and then I had like an APP, an all points bulletin out there.
APB,
hey, if you find one of these, let me know. And sure enough, after like a couple years, one guy in the community says, "I think I found your car."
Wow.
And
I love that color.
It's just amazing. It catches so much attention.
Yeah. I had a friend in high school whose parents had some money and they bought him a brand new one. Let's see, what year is yours?
The Ravenna Green one is 74.
74, yeah. So that must have been the year of his car too, because that would have made sense. And I remember I wanted a Porsche as a new first car. My parents said, "Yeah, you're born in the wrong house, kiddo. You better go get a job," which I did. And that's how I bought my first car, but it wasn't that. But he was a little bit spoiled, let's just say. And he wanted a 911, but they bought him a 914, less engine. And so he didn't like it. He was always kind of snippy and mad about it. I'm like, "Well, I'll drive." So I always got to drive his car whenever he went anywhere. And I just thought, man, this is it's like a go-kart.
It's great.
Yeah. Is that, when I ask my guests about a special vehicle story, is that your special vehicle story or is there something else?
No, there's definitely another story, but it is actually related to that car, directly related to that car. Uh-huh. So I don't know how much time you have, but
well, we'll do the condensed version. How's that?
We'll do the condensed version. So anyway, I mentioned that this car is a rare color. It's also highly, highly original. And back in 2019, it was invited to be on the lawn at the Quail,
Nice.
which was a huge honor.
Of course.
I mean, just amazing, right? So my car buddies and I planned a trip driving fun roads up from Los Angeles to Monterey, and a bunch of other guys also had cars that were, two of the other guys had cars in the Quail, and we were just going to go up for Car Week. And so we set up this amazing trip, right? And we get underway and we have this fantastic lunch in Topanga Canyon and start driving, on Old Topanga Canyon Road, great twisties and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I get hung up in traffic a little bit, leaving the parking lot at lunch. So the rest of the guys are ahead of me, and I start diving into the twisties. I go over a little bump, and I hear a noise, and I'm like, oh, that's not usual.
Yeah.
I hit the brakes, and the pedal goes to the floor.
Uh-oh.
In the canyon. Now, fortunately, I wasn't on a steep hill, but I white-knuckled the e-brake, and I limp over to this small parking lot in front of the Chabad school of Topanga, a religious school in Topanga.
Uh-huh.
And I see a puddle of fluid that's bleeding out the back.
Yeah.
Well, there's no cell service in the canyon, and the rest of the gang is well ahead of me, out of walkie-talkie range. So I tell my son to wait near the car while I try to go get help. I see this guy walking towards a house behind the school and ask if I can use the phone. Well, it turns out it's the school's rabbi, a guy named David Weiss, great guy. So he lets me use the phone and then asks if I would pray with him.
Let's pray for the car.
Yeah. So I say, why not? I'm in a bad situation here. It seems like a good time to pray.
Might help.
Now, this kind of praying involves wrapping your arm in a leather strap and putting a small box with a religious scroll on your head. I don't know if you've ever seen.
Maybe that's the point you start to run back to the roadway.
But I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'm like I said, I'm game. You just got to go in.
Interesting.
So as I'm doing this, my son, who I guess is wondering where I am, leaves the car and walks up to the house, and now he sees me wrapped in leather trying to make sense of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
5 minutes ago, we're eating lunch.
Do I need to
with a group of
rescue
car
you,
guys.
Dad?
Yeah, and now I'm praying with a rabbi I just met.
Wow.
So I waited for AAA, but their estimates went from 1 hour to 3.
Yeah.
It's already 4 o'clock, and I'm seeing the trip and the Quail and everything just completely slipping away from me.
Yeah.
So I remember what my mentor Stu, what he said, and I thought, let me see if I can find out what's going on. So all I got is time now, and I put the car up on the stock jack, and I take a look, and I see right there on the bleeder in the back is a wrench, literally sitting on the
bleeder valve. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So the bump must have knocked it. The fluid drained out.
Yep.
I realize this is great news because there's really nothing mechanically wrong with this system. But how did the wrench get there?
Yeah, somebody left it there.
Well, so the backstory of it was since I knew the car was going to go to the Quail, I wanted to bring it up to show ready. So I shipped the car to LA a few months out to get some paint work done, a bunch of other little things. I put new calipers from PMB Performance, who's amazing at all corners. And the car was in a friend's garage, so I could do a lot of work myself when coming out for other business when I was in LA for TV.
Yep.
Now, the 914 is notoriously difficult to bleed. Notorious.
Yep.
I went through a few liters of fluid. I'm finally starting to get a pedal, but I had to fly back to New York before I had a chance to bleed it one last time. So another friend of mine in LA offered to do it while I was away. Like I said, the 914 community is amazing that way. Yeah. So I gladly accepted. When I came back to LA a day before the trip, I had speed bleeders with me, tubing, fresh fluid to do it one final time if I needed. But I figured, let me take it for a test drive first. And it drove great. So for once in my life, I decided to leave well enough alone.
Yeah.
And off my son and I went.
Yeah.
Well, it seems my friend inadvertently left the wrench on the bleeder, and now I'm stranded in Topanga Canyon.
Praying with a rabbi, wrapped in leather.
With a rabbi.
Wow.
So I look at the wrench and realize I'm grateful it's there because it's actually the only tool I was missing to bleed the brakes. I put the speed bleeders in, cracked open the fluid.
The praying worked.
I bled the car right there in the Chabad parking lot with the stock jack, and the rabbi cheered us on, and I have video of this.
That is hilarious.
And my son, put all the tires on everything. And long story, a little shorter, we made it to the Quail. Yeah. It was an amazing experience, and that's the picture I sent you, actually.
What year was that?
That happened in 2019. That was the last one
okay.
before our,
Yep.
collective world went into.
Then I saw it because I was there. So there you go. Absolutely. I'll have to go through my pictures and find that. I'm going to crawl into your skull a little bit here, Ian. If you woke up tomorrow and you were manifest as a vehicle, this isn't what you want to be. This is your personality as a vehicle. What would you be, and more importantly, why?
Well, I think this is not me cheaping out here in answering your question, but I would be a 914.
Okay.
And the reason why is because it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The 914, the styling is, some people just love it, and some people are like, I don't get it. And I think that's, maybe like me a little bit. It's quirky, but it does what it does well.
Yeah.
And the people who love it really love it.
Yeah.
So I would say I'd be a 914. That, or maybe a Pontiac Aztec.
Oh my gosh! Well, now we're
for the
going
same
down.
reasons.
Now we're going down a very bizarre road. I'm not even going to ask you why on that one.
Same reasons.
Well,
reasons.
okay. I always think of Breaking Bad when I think of those poor vehicles.
Yeah, not meth.
Yeah,
That's the
not
one.
meth and
No,
a pizza on the roof. So there you go.
Right.
What a great series that was. Man, the writers were genius in that one.
Totally.
Very fun. How about a great read, a great book? Would you like to share one with us?
Yeah, sure. And this is from a long time ago, but it's really still had a deep effect on me. There's a book called The Music Lesson. It's by Victor Wooten. It's kind of an obscure book. Victor is one of the world's best bass players. And a musician friend of mine, Daria Musk, turned me onto it because we were talking about kind of like the way your brain works and the universe and getting into that deep stuff. In the book, Victor Wooten feels stuck in a rut with his playing and his career, and someone appears in his life, and somehow this person knows everything about him, and he acts as a spiritual guide. And throughout the book, you're not quite sure if this person is real, and if the book is an autobiography or maybe it's a novel. It's really well done. The person, I think the character in the book's name is Michael, and he changes Wooten's life by teaching him that everything we need to have everything we really want is inside us. And we just need to trust the inner voice. Nice. or ask the right questions. It's not about having the right answers so much as it is asking the right questions, because the way our brains work is if you ask the right question, your brain will work really hard to find the answer.
Yep.
But if you're just looking for the answer to something, it won't show up as organically or methodically as asking the right question first.
Well, I'm going to have to get my hands on that. No one's ever mentioned that book, and I'll tell my listeners, as you know, there's a great place in the Karr Show website called Guest Recommended Books, where there's almost 2,000 books listed there by my inspiring automotive enthusiasts. And here's a new one to add to your library, your repertoire, since we're talking music. So The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten, Wooten is his last name.
Yep.
I'm going to get my hands on that. Give that a read. Sounds great. We'll be right back. One more short break. We come back. We're going to go on the ultimate drive. Maybe it'll involve a little praying with the rabbi. You never know. So sit tight.
Good.
We'll be right back. And I'll insert some more ad spots here. What a fun talk. All right. All right. Let's go on the ultimate drive. You get to pick a vehicle. You get to pick who you're with. You get to pick the roads you're on, what you're going to talk about. So what does that ultimate drive look like to you, Ian?
This one is easy.
Okay.
It would be a 1971 Mercedes 280 SE 3.5 Cabriolet.
Ooh.
And it is my choice because my dad bought one new.
Oh, wow.
It's the first car I remember seeing in the showroom, and I remember watching my dad go over to the desk and sign for it.
Wow.
And driving it home. And unfortunately, he sold it reluctantly. It had something to do with his partner in business, not letting him buy it from the business. I don't remember. I never got the full story, or I never fully understood the story. But I would choose that car because I was 13 when he sold it, and I never had the chance to drive it. And it was so significant. It's so beautiful and so classic. I mean, it still is.
Yeah.
So I would love to just take another ride in that car, and who it would be with, obviously it would be with my dad. I mean, I'd talk with him about building things. He was an architect and owned his own business.
My dad was an architect.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, he was a fascinating guy, and he would build things. And your father was an architect of commercial or
Mostly
homes,
he did
or?
homes, custom homes, but in his later part of his career, he did some commercial projects and became a bit of a developer, some shopping buildings and things like that, but mostly custom homes for people and things like that. But that car is pretty cool. I have a friend who lives down where I grew up in La Jolla, California, who has one that was Roy Orbison's car.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and she's had it for a while. Her husband bought it for her, and it's a beautiful kind of a cream white color. And I'm trying to remember the license plate. There's a song that he did, Pretty Woman, and the license plate is Pretty Woman. Which is appropriate for my friend. She's a very attractive lady. I've known her since junior high, but those cars they're built like tanks, kind of the last of the hand-built Mercedes-Benz.
Yep.
Oh yeah, if only you still had that car. Yeah, that's got to be. Do you know by any chance where it could be these days? Is it still around?
Yeah, I don't. You know what? And I was just talking with a friend of mine about finding it, because I think I know the insurance company we had, and I'm sure the records are there. So
if you had the VIN,
yeah, I don't have the VIN, but I think I can get it.
Okay.
And you know what? If I have some time, I mean, that's one of my bucket list things is I'd love to find that car. I mean, the real fantasy is find it and restore it.
Of course.
The last we heard about it, it was a beautiful like maroon color. And the last we heard was that it was sold, right after my dad sold it, and they painted it some sort of orange color.
Huh.
So if you know out there anyone who's listening to this, an orange 280 SE 3.5 Cabriolet that had a repaint, I want to hear from you.
Well, there's a couple people I've had on the show here. Roy Spencer, who deals in those cars. J.G. Francis, who deals in those cars. A few people who've been on the show here. We'll have to put some feelers out there to see if we can find that thing for you, because that would be pretty cool. There was a great color back in that era Mercedes. They made like a pumpkin. It was a non-metallic pumpkin orange color that was beautiful color. I don't know if that's what it was painted. What was it originally?
It was like a maroon.
A maroon.
I don't remember the name of it, the Mercedes color of it, but it was like it was very deep red.
Yep. Yeah, I've got a friend that has an older that era coupe, the two-door coupe that he's had for a long time, a diesel. I think it's got like 400,000 miles on it or something like that.
Wow.
Now. Yeah, it's a workhorse. Well, you've taken us on a wonderful ride. We could talk forever about cars and all the fun stuff you're doing. Before I let you go, could you leave us with maybe some parting words of wisdom, advice, a mantra, a success quote?
A success quote. Well, you're going to laugh, but my favorite success quote in life comes from The Little Rascals. Remember The Little Rascals?
Of course, I watched them all the time.
Yep. Okay. Well, Stymie on The Little Rascals. We didn't know that he was a philosopher, but he gave Plato a run for his money.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So Stymie's line, which I quote, if not daily, definitely weekly, is this. And the story is, so he and the kids are they build like a makeshift fire engine or something like that, and they take it to the top of a hill in L.A. and they're running down the hill.
I remember.
I don't know if you remember that episode.
I do.
So as the fire engine is making its turn and starting to go down the hill, Stymie turns to Spanky and says, "I don't know where we're going, but we're on our way."
Yeah, I love that. It's wonderful. Yeah,
it's just I find it's like one of the truest things in life, because if you think about it, we're always in motion, but none of us knows where the journey is going to end.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I find that it's and even in that story I was telling you about the when I had the brakes go out of me in Topanga, when I finally did get in touch with my car buddies, and they said, "Where are you? What's going on?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm in the middle of a great story."
Yeah, no doubt. And you shared it with us, and I appreciate that. What are some of the ways people can, keep up with you and watch your YouTube channel?
Well, I'm on youtube.com/Ian Karr. That's IANKARR.
There you go.
Kind of easy to remember. And I guess with my last name, I was destined to do something like this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's youtube.com/Ian Karr. And you can check that stuff out. And one of the other things I was going to tell you about that is that I like to put the warts in. when I make a mistake or do something not right,
Yeah.
I like to put that in there. It's one of my favorite things
What they
to
call
do.
those blooper reels?
Yeah, but I think it's more like a life reel, because I think life is more about bloopers than it is about getting things right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, you can see it on there, and then you can find my company website at ikacollective.com.
All right. I'll make sure I put links to those on Ian's show notes page. Check it out. Check out his YouTube page. And I tell you what, if this didn't inspire you to take that leap, that big, bold leap, and get out there and produce something, whether it's a podcast, it's a blog, a vlog, a video, YouTube, whatever, we have never lived in a time in the history of mankind where it is so easy to do this on limited or zero budget. Just try it. You never know what you might end up producing, and you never know who you might end up inspiring. Ian, thank you for spending some time with us today. This was great fun. I think I'm going to go on a road trip with you. Who knows where we're going to end up? But,
I hope so, Mark. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But whatever it is, we're on our way. I'll see you down the road. All right. Nice.